For all intents and purposes, it is 7:05 p.m. So we'll get started with the combined study session for this evening. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I go any further, I would also like to just make a quick announcement that the live cast is not working tonight because of the storm that hit over the weekend. However, this meeting will still be recorded for all intents and purposes and then be uploaded to the district's web or YouTube page after the fact. So our viewers and or people at home can still see this meeting. Perfect. You get first. We're gonna open it up to our superintendent, Neil English's comments.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending. Administrators, thank you for being here and all your preparations with the rest of the summer staff over the year. We put the finished touches on our Riverview reporter, and there's some really exciting stuff in there. Here, I'd say it's the best data that we've seen in the last decade, and that's thanks to our great staff and administration and students for sure. So we have a lot to celebrate. We have the lights coming, which is exciting. That should happen sometime in early fall. And we have Miss Smith who's joining us. She started at the end of last year, so we have a new administrator, and then we have Dr. Turk serving as in that director of building and grounds role with some new responsibilities over the summer, as well as 7 new teachers that are coming in, which is the highest number of new staff that we've had. Also, that I can remember is in the last decade. One of those new teachers is here, our computer science teacher. So thank you. But we're getting geared up. We have a couple more weeks to go. People probably don't want to hear that at home, but we're excited to get the kids back in the buildings and have them be in the classrooms laughing and learning, and that's why we work. So we're excited for the kids to come back. So that's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. English. I don't really have any comments other than to enjoy the rest of your summer because it's winding down pretty quickly. But I will have comments next week. So we'll move right along into our presentations for tonight. Our first one will be from Mr. Reedy. From Draw Collective. He will give us an update on the capital improvement project.
So just turn that button on and just turn the mic towards you. Perfect.
All right. Props on pronouncing my last name correctly on your first try. Thank you.
Honestly, I'm going to take that.
You nailed it. So it's nice to meet all of you. That for most of you, this is the first time I'm meeting you. Normally you've seen Dan Engen, our principal. I'll be the project manager for your upcoming junior, senior high school additions and alterations project. So it's great to finally meet all of you in person. I'm going to be presenting pretty quick couple of slides here. We don't have design updates because we're just starting to get into some of the really heavy documentation phase of schematic design, but what we do have to present is some proposals for engineering services that will be contracted directly with the school district. So this is not under Draw Collective's umbrella design agreement. These are separate. There are 3 proposals that were requests for proposals that were sent out. One was for civil engineering. One was to do a land survey of your existing property, and the other was to do geotechnical surveying, including subsurface testing and borings to determine what the geology of the site was like. So if you wanted to, you can see up on the board here, we have shown kind of the recommendations that we have. We got proposals from 3 different engineering companies for all 3 of those services. Gateway Engineers was the lowest of the 3 that we got. They were the lowest in civil engineering And they overall were the lowest when you added up all three of their services. And we would recommend hiring them for all three just for the sake of making it easier for communication and accountability. So if you don't mind just flipping to the next slide, you can see a quick summary showing all three. We got proposals from three companies that we work with regularly and would have been happy to work with on this project: CEC, HRG, and Gateway. Gateway, as you can see, they were very much lower on the civil engineering services, and that brought their entire total down. They were slightly higher on some of the other ones, but in general, all of their costs were very reasonable. We vetted their scope to make sure that you're getting all of the design that you actually need for the project, and we found we were pretty comfortable with what they were doing. Their scope for geotechnical, or their fee proposal, was broken out a little bit differently than the others, so we wanted to reflect that here. But even with that, how they designed it and what their anticipated reimbursable costs would be for geotechnical, they were still ended up being the lowest overall. Does anybody have any questions on those proposals or our recommendation?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Has the district worked with either of these entities or any of these entities before?
I cannot speak to HRG or Gateway. I know you've worked with CEC before. They were probably the second lowest on the list. They helped with, I believe, your most recent driveway project. I can't speak to the other ones. Yeah.
Got it. And that was a fine experience? Okay,
CEC was a fine experience.
and then out of these three, are they doing any work similar to this scope in other districts?
Yeah, and I don't have this proposal in front of me, but Gateway, who we're recommending, they have several projects in all different types of fields, including several school districts. And I can't remember off the top of my head which one they were, but it is in the proposal. And if you can go back to that folder, I believe you can pull up their proposal if that's something you want to share here, or I can follow up with you later or with Dr. English about their experience.
Just be nice to do the diligence.
Yeah.
Contact the other school districts and see how
Yeah.
their experiences.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's a protocol to do anyway.
one thing I would say is a lot of times when you work with civil engineers that don't have experience with school districts, the biggest difference is public bid versus private bid. Or if they do a lot of municipal work, they do a lot of work for PennDOT, that kind of thing. It's a completely different bidding process. And so what we vetted with them is not necessarily that they worked with like school districts in this area, but that they were familiar with and worked on this type of bidding process, because really it's not necessarily that they know schools, it's that they know how to do public bid in this environment so that they're showing scope that's not going to result in change orders, that's going to lead to a successful project. But in general, your site work for this project is pretty minimal. We're not really adjusting the driveway. There's not much of a traffic change of anything. The addition really isn't affecting your traffic flow. It's just kind of eliminating a couple of those parking spots in the front. So from a civil engineering standpoint, there's not a ton that is really needed for that.
Got it.
If this was a brand new school and there was a whole site, we had to do busing and traffic studies and other things like that, I think we would have probably recommended someone more like HRG. They have a lot better skills and capacities in that realm, but you're paying for it. I don't think that you need that level of detail on this.
Thank you.
And then the last slide here is just kind of talking about schedule. This has not changed from what Dan presented to you last time. Basically, we're moving into kind of we're finishing up schematic design. We'll be presenting that final package at the September board meeting. And then we would be looking for approval to move into design development at that point. We're most of the way there already. Now it's kind of just going into the building and doing all of our investigative research of the existing systems and measuring everything.
Would it be possible to get a list of what the expected reimbursables are?
Yes, so they did provide that in their proposal. And so just if anybody is interested in that, basically they acknowledge that a lot of what they're going to find below the surface is unknown. And so rather than giving you an upfront cost that's either too high or too low, they're saying, here is a list of what we are anticipating, but they're going to charge a base fee that's a lot lower. And then when they encounter those things, if they encounter those things, they would charge them at that point. But for the most part, every single one of those engineers understands that the borings are going to have to be to a certain depth. The bedrock is like 80 feet below the surface. They're going to need to at least have one of their borings get all the way down to that level to make sure that they understand where that condition is. But otherwise, their reimbursables, it's listed on their proposal. And so Dr. English has that if you're interested in looking at it.
Yeah, could you send us the 3 proposals? They have all 3 in that zip document.
Yeah, and I think it's in this folder, so we can, if there's any very specific questions that you want to answer now, we can pull those up. Otherwise, we can follow up with you afterwards.
So just to see them, and then, is it that you probably already said this, the estimated reimbursables for each of the other 2 are also located there in?
So that's, there was a difference in how they structured their proposals. The other 2 firms did not include that. They basically just included all of that in their base fee. And they just said, this is what we're going to charge right off the bat. HRG does not do their own geotechnical work, so they had given us a proposal from ECS, which is a completely separate company. In our experience, ECS is usually the lowest bidder, but usually they come back and ask for change orders for those estimated reimbursables later. They just don't tell you about it up front. Gateway's just kind of telling you about it up front. So. And CEC included all of those in their bid, but as you can see, their geotechnical estimate was way higher than everybody else's.
Any other questions for Mr. Reed? I will send you those other files in the zip drive board. Okay. And we'll make sure we put it on the agenda for next week as well.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Pull up those other slides, please. Okay, good. All right, the board has asked me to put together a little bit of a research study in terms of
Dr. English, before, Mr. Reedy, would it be possible for you to stay just for the second, the piece of our, finance?
Yes.
Okay. It's truly right after,
Yeah.
presentations. Or. And after public, then just with reports. There's good. It's good. It's good. Okay, good.
okay. The board asked me to do a research study here. In terms of career and college and career counseling research, with the driving questions of what is the current data in the county regarding school counselors, caseloads, and the delineation of duties and responsibilities, and what course of action Riverview could take in the future in terms of this. First page here just has basic numbers. We have 2 junior, senior high school counselors, 420 students. Therefore, the caseload is 210 to 1. What we did is I did an overall review of 53 district operated high school buildings in Allegheny County, 43 comparable ratios, and 20 comparable buildings at or below 250 to 1, 23 above 250 to 1. This chart just shows you kind of where that data lies. Hey, screen 2, sorry. Okay, the graph just kind of shows you where all of those schools in Allegheny County sort of land. on the bar graph in terms of caseloads. So this is just caseloads. I also put out a request for information from all the superintendents in the county. I got 19 district level responses. I also did an additional website analysis for the schools that have received. So let's go to the next page and I can show you what we found. Okay, the top is Riverview numbers. The American School Counselor Association recommended student to counselor ratio is 250 to 1. The county mean, the county average is 265 to 1. The county median is 254 to 1. And the national average is 372 to 1. Riverview currently stands at a caseload of 210 to 1. So we're well below the county average and the median, and also ASCA recommended optimal caseload benchmarks. So therefore, the rationale for additional services in college and career counseling is just more about determining the need for a specialized capacity as opposed to caseloads. Okay. Next page. Here are some peer examples of schools that do have specific positions. We have Avonworth, Carlington, Moon, Heinrich, and Quaker Valley, who has 2, and South Allegheny and South Fayette. And the services, I tried to provide an overview of the services that those particular people do. Slightly different in different places, but generally speaking, these are the services that they're providing: student profiles, FAFSA scholarships, internship, oversight, and job shadows, and business, industry, and community partnerships, and overseeing certainly the junior and senior high, specifically college visits, rep visits, etc. That being said, traditionally in those other schools, those counseling, those all-encompassing counselors are doing that work, as well as the traditional counseling responsibilities. Next page. I wanted to give you context for understanding what our counselors are currently doing, especially at the junior, senior high school. Services for counseling really fall under 4 different buckets. There's academic planning and student progress, student wellness and responsive services, college and career services, and consultation, coordination, and program leadership. And this is, up to and including, not all inclusive of every single thing that they do, but I wanted to give you a good understanding of all the things that our counselors are doing for students. And so they're doing a sort of a potpourri of all 4 of these areas. So, yeah, I put this in the black box. The presentation, I think we need to be careful here and make sure we're interpreting not really as a critique of counselor effectiveness, but realizing that counselors provide a comprehensive academic, career, and social emotional crisis response and consultation and system support services. So once again, just as I said earlier, the question is really, do you want to add specialized capacity in the college and career services bucket here, the 3rd bucket, in addition to what is already being done at the junior, senior high? Okay, I'm going to make some recommendations here on the next page, since we're already into the budget cycle. So due to our favorable counselor-student ratio, the recommendation at this time is to maintain current counseling structure for the upcoming year with some focused attention in the following areas. 1, we just brought on Ms. Smith, who's been a career counselor for her whole life, and Ms. DeRochers currently oversees the counseling department. They're going to review the currently counseling model, identify areas in which students and families may benefit from additional support, gather additional observations and stakeholder information, and then report those findings and recommendations in the spring to the senior administration and the board. 2nd, an operational review, conducting a limited operational review of sort of time and current demands on the counselors already previously in those positions. their service delivery, and maybe having a short period of time where we have a really good understanding of like what their day looks like on a day-to-day basis for some additional information to report back. Second, professional organizations and peer analysis, strengthening counselor engagement with the National Academy of College and Career Counselors and the Pennsylvania organization as well, where they can verify staffing models and responsibilities, costs and outcomes in comparable districts. And then looking at communication standards and family engagement, assessing the current communication pathways and developing possibly a more structured approach to bringing the Counselor Compass, which already exists on the website, to life and including grade-specific timelines, clear checkpoints, consistent reminders so that parents feel like they're a part of the process. And we can possibly better utilize parents at home to ensure that they're where they are in terms of the checklists. And finally, annual review. We turned to the board in 2027 in the spring with some updated student outcome data findings from Ms. Smith and Mr. Rocher's operational reviews. Have some additional verified peer information, potential staffing options, and costing estimates if necessary. And we'll provide a recommendation, of course, at that time as well. Last page are all the sources and reference materials we used. Kind of put it all together for you at first glance here in August. Any questions?
Yeah, so I don't know that it necessarily addresses I think it addresses the long-term issue. I don't know that it addresses the short term. Is there, and this is going to be a Ms. Luber question as well. Are there funds that can be reallocated based on our budget? I know it's really tight, so I'm not trying to do too much here, but in terms of a stipend position, right? I think that we have, and also again, spitballing, I don't even know if this person would want to take it on. But we had really good feedback when Ms. Allen stepped into the role during the sabbatical. And I think in general, would it be possible to have her in doing some portions of it, right? If it's, maybe it's not the direct counseling because she's teaching classes full time, but is it possible if she would even want to? I don't want to speak for her. But I know that, we're all wearing multiple hats in this district. I'm like, if she would even be willing to and/or doing a stipend for it to supplement that she's doing an additional job.
Miss Allen is currently hired at 10th Street Elementary as a full-time counselor. So
That's right.
yeah, she'll be working at 10th Street. So we have another new counselor coming in at Verona, Mr. Kmetz as well. So at this time, I think some additional study and some additional data by our administrative team, I think would be appropriate. That way we can round out the information, provide you a more 360-degree view of where some of the pain points are, if there are any. Maybe provide some on-the-ground communication standards, early and often, so that I think can address some of the, the issues that we've been talking about. And then our recommendation is to report back to the board, and we can make considerations and decisions for next year in next year's budget if that's appropriate, if we decide that that's appropriate as a team.
Can we have 1 and 2 then done and then more immediate? So maybe break this into phases of a timeline, right? Because I think that the issue is there's a whole graduating class in between now and then. So I don't want to say that this work shouldn't be done and looked into, but I want to be proactive rather than reactive. And if we wait a year, we're being reactive. And so is it a possibility to break 1 and 2 into maybe a phase of saying, hey, these need to be completed and the board needs to be updated by October, say, right? And next action steps will be, here's what we can do in the interim with the staff that we do have.
I would say as someone who's in the boat, right now. Number 4 is probably the most,
I was gonna go there.
the number
Yeah,
4 is
I
the
mean,
highest.
I don't care
If I
what,
could
yeah.
chime in, say, I was the one who really
Yeah,
asked for this research study to be done, because I
Yeah.
can tell you the pain points very firsthand, and I'm about to experience it again. Hopefully not, but we'll see. So the college and career services are lacking for sure. And my guess is that obviously our 2 counselors are busy with the other 3 areas, and so they can only get to so much of the college and career stuff. To the extent that we've taken some of the things like Naviance and writing college essays and stuff and given them to other teachers. I think I talked to Mrs. Rokini actually more than I did the counselor about like college essay and Common App and things like that. Or even email other administrators just to get information. So
Yeah.
the communication in terms of like the steps in which students and parents need to be aware of in terms of those key timings in the fall are really lacking. And I will be the first to tell you that 17-year-olds are not good at relaying information that they got in class. Because as much as you say, oh, well, they know about this in class, that doesn't mean that I'm aware of it. And I'm the one who's paying the application fees through the Common App for them to apply to schools and all of that. So if I don't know how it's working, then it's up to like me to figure out on my own or whatever. So there's a serious need for not only better communication, but just awareness of like the steps and what's available and such. I mean, even down to we're having, and if we're having SAT prep class or, anything like that's offered. I know there was one offered last year. I think I found out about it 24 hours before it happened and there was no time to sign up for it. So, like things like that are just really falling through the cracks. So I'm not trying to blame any current counselor, but it just seems as though they're busy with all the other things. And so this stuff is not getting done in a timely fashion. And there's certainly not a lot of communication about it. I realize that you can find a lot of information online or on the website, but to me, there should be regular, especially for juniors and then especially again for seniors, there should be regular intervals of like August 1st, the Common App opens, October, whatever, this thing happened,
early
like
decision.
early decisions, for these schools, so there should be like very good communication going on. I think I received like maybe 2 newsletters all year, I think junior year from counselors.
It's like you need 1 and 4 though to go together then.
So it's just like the lack of knowledge of like what's supposed to be going on and who's supposed to be doing what when is really, really challenging. And so I think that it's not about collecting data and it's not about like, well, we don't know what the pain points are. I think you could get a focus group of parents and they'll be gladly interested in telling you what the pain points are.
I think any graduate would.
Well, I mean, I just don't want to make any statements in defense of the counselors or anyone else. I mean, it's the summertime, so we're not digging into sort of the day-to-day of what they're doing. And so in terms of a root cause analysis of, I have no doubt that your experience in terms of communication is accurate according to what you've experienced. I want to be able to confidently give you evidence and say, okay, well, is it because they're overworked, there's too many things, or is it because, is it communicate? What is the issue? And so I don't have those answers today.
I think you're missing
For a
Jen's
year, it's not a new
point,
thing.
though, it's not so much that we're looking for data to say what's the breakdown. We're saying that there is a breakdown and how can we fix it in the future, right? And I think it's more looking at solutions for the now and the later. But I think to Jen's point of number 4 coming up first and Kareem, right? It's really like, how can we, starting this year, September, October, November, when all of these things are happening for juniors and seniors, how can we effectively communicate with our junior and senior parents and the students, make sure all of that information is accessible to everyone, and then proceed forward, right? There may be breakdowns in between there of, hey, we missed this deadline, or we didn't even think about this, specific piece of an
Yeah,
application or
I'm
something.
saying that like it has to be a whole nother person, or whatever. That's not the point. It's more about the fact that like there's a lot of details that are getting lost, I think, in the midst of things. And so if
Yeah.
we need to just like redo the operational, structure of like, oh, well, this is gonna happen at this point, and somebody can send out notification here. Cause I don't know, personally, like my kid would be like, oh, I only talk to my counselor really when I need to like do scheduling or do certain things. There's not any other like reasons for me to know, you know, this
If
stuff.
they're getting an email about it. I mean, you're all doing a great job, but they don't read them.
And they don't forward them
So
on.
I asked them like, I mean, you brought up, I'll use a case example, you brought a paper. Job shadow, and I said, who does that go to? He goes, somebody. I can't help if I don't know.
Or like, I personally didn't know like the different teachers that were in charge of the different things. I was like, well, this is like to me a guidance counselor or school counselor like thing. And it was like, oh no, well, it's an English teacher thing because it's the essay. No, it's Mr. Carlin who does this part. It's someone else who helps. So I'm like, okay, well then to me, it sounds like the counselors can't manage all of this if we're divvying up these tasks to different teachers to help with. Like, that's fine. I'm not saying we can't all like use different strengths in different areas if it's not requiring us to like get a whole new person to focus on college and career readiness. But it's just, I will
Yeah.
tell you that it wasn't a good experience.
If I should, sorry, chime in a little bit, like maybe what Jennifer, you and Tony were like getting at was perhaps maybe like a ad hoc committee could come up with like a pilot program, like based off of like maybe more quickly gathered evidence than like a year later, so it would help out some of the current seniors. And then I also wanted to touch on like in terms of the counselors, I know me like as an individual, if you look at like Maslow's like hierarchy of needs, if you know you're a teacher or counselor and you're dealing with like making sure that you're meeting like a lot of the base, helping kids meet their base needs, you know, like if they're constantly in fight or flight mode or just helping them get past these base survival needs, then they're not, it's gonna be hard to help and focus in on like those upper level needs for being successful in achieving. And I think that's why it's been suggested that we have someone who can dedicate their time and focus in that area.
So I did speak with Ms. Smith and Mr. Rocher over the last couple of days, and they're certainly focusing right up. I mean, obviously, there's things that need to happen in September, October. And so we have talked about a more detailed, more consistent update through email communication, especially with the juniors and seniors, but then monthly for 7th through 10th, and then bi-weekly at least for the upperclassmen, just to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of making that compass, that counseling and career compass, which is on the website, which is like, this is what you do in September and October, come to life in real time.
There was a really good meeting at the beginning of freshman year, 4 or 5 years ago now, that it was like all the counselors and parents could come, whatever. At that time it was in person, but this could be online, whatever. And it was sort of like, oh, welcome to high school freshman year. Here's like what happens freshman year. Here's what happens sophomore year. It was kind of like a good like roadmap. And I guess I was hopeful that that would be something that would happen at the beginning of each of those years. Like, let's do one of those at the beginning of sophomore year, junior year, senior year, because then that way you could say, oh, so the first half of junior year is really got a lot, things you need to be paying attention for. The first half of your senior year is really critical because that's the transcripts, the mid-year transcripts that are going to get sent, like those kinds of things. Like, so having those points like each year would be really helpful. I said I had a good experience with that meeting freshman year, and then we never had one again for years. So it kind of fell off, and so that was something that was helpful, but then there wasn't any like follow-up to it. Whether it was just meetings or newsletters or I don't know, whatever, like information that could have come from it. I know now we also have parent Naviance accounts, whereas was not a thing like a year or two ago. So parents need to know, like, what do they have access to? How do we use that? Because I know it's like pulling teeth getting information from a 17-year-old. Like, well, what do you do in Naviance? Oh, it's just stuff, whatever. You don't really get a lot of detail, but now if we're gonna have a parent Naviance account, well, then the parents need to know what they're looking at and like, what is it for and how do they help and such.
Not to pile on to Dr. Turks. Like, I know, you can turn away, and honestly, I get it. I just don't know if he also may be like a good in-between to help Ms. Brochers and Smith to kind of get up to speed or in some way, shape or form to get this piece of it operational for the juniors and seniors, because he, one, has the connection with the students. Two, he was there to kind of see, right, like over the last several years of what that's looked like, in terms of information coming out in, I don't, like I said, I don't know. But
I think it's definitely operational issue and communication issue at the biggest heart of it, I think. Because I think we could solve that with some of our current people. It's been really minimal
yeah,
and not very, very helpful.
I'm saying you're good at communicating.
good.
Is what I should say. So,
I think he has a skill of communication and process, and I think where we're at right now is because a communication process needs to be, so it'd be super helpful. Just to say, like, I'm trying to manage.
Mhm.
As a parent, we become managers too much of the time, but that's okay. This is a group effort. We shouldn't say that you're totally responsible for doing everything, but if you want me to back you up, I need some information. I can back you up. But I need it to be like, hey, are you on top of this? Are you on top of that? Because I have to be on top of someone else who's gonna say, yeah, sure, I got that done.
we
No,
also don't want students missing opportunities too, right? Like, because at the end of the day, it does become a missed opportunity if they can't apply to a certain amount of schools that they want to do and this, that, or the third. If they don't have fee waivers, if they don't know when deadlines are coming up for early or late acceptance, if they don't know that they have, you know, even options from the standpoint of our Forbes Road students and then wanting to change their mind halfway through. I mean, it happens with a lot of people. And so then, I don't want to say a lot of people, but it does happen from time to time where students want to change their mind and then can they apply to certain schools late, how late, et cetera.
Okay, so why don't, let's plan on a report to the board at the October study session in terms of initial steps taken and, progress on some of these, you know, on the second to last slide in terms of action steps. Is that,
Yeah.
is that reasonable?
I'd just like to say, I don't think it's a matter of, to me, it's not a matter of you can only ask people to have so much capacity, and when they're trying to do all of the other things and
Mhm.
wedge this in, they just may not need another person, but they need a process that would help them automate. I mean, we're at the point where you can automate an email, and so if you've got them preloaded, you just go, this one goes out. I send this one on August 15th, it's out. It's already done. I think we have the count, and I speak from my experience as an academic advisor at a university level, and with the ratio is fine. But what we're asked to do, and I'll speak from my experience, what I'm asked to do as an academic advisor is much more than help me schedule my classes and help me do these things. It's, you know, I have 6 different buckets. And so I have a communication plan with my students. And this is the message that goes out here, and here's the message that goes out here. It's just helping them, taking that burden off of the counselors to say, this will make your life a lot easier if you've got a communication plan and you can say, okay, now parents know. If I'm getting a message on first day of school that says, okay, your kid better get on top of this, this, and this, great, I'll follow through. But if I have to dig through the website and go, I have to remember one website to look for that, and it's what's the timing on that? Should I be doing that now? It's a lot more intuitive for everybody, and I can be a better parent and member of the school to say, hey, the counselor sent me this. Looks like we need to be working on this week, or looks like what you were supposed to be doing. If we're gonna have a team effort, I need some plays, as they would say. You know what the play is, and I will be glad to execute it.
We don't need I don't know that we necessarily need an update. I think if,
I'm happy to get it updated, but to me, like, that's less important
Yeah.
than it is about more like, hey, we took your feedback. You know, we did our due diligence to look at where the pay points are, or whatever. We
Yeah.
heard your, you know, what your experience has been, and here's what we're doing. We're gonna put out a first of the school year email, and then we're gonna have kids meet with their counselors on the state, or we're gonna have a parent Zoom meeting junior year and senior year, or I don't know, whatever you want to say, like, these are the helpful things that we're gonna start doing. Or make sure that is getting communicated to parents as well as kids, because stuff falls
we don't
through
want
the
to put like
cracks.
more on your plate of like a presentation, like this was great, but now that we have this, it's more like, sure.
Because my initial question was like, do we just need a dedicated college career counselor? Because there's just too much to do, you know, for 2 people. And if that's not the case,
But I,
fine, but then let's just figure out what's missing and like who needs to do what then.
or you take, I mean, beyond that, the initial Band-Aid is get some sort of a communication plan, and then to say, as you're looking for the next year, to say, and we did find that there might be a gap here, or we did find that this is someone we could use a person. I'd rather that part is take the time to do it and say, yes, there is a need. Is it a 50% need and then it's 75% need? What is the concrete on that? For right now to say, we've heard enough, and I think it's not just Jenna, I talked to other parents. I just need to know what's going on, and that's it. I can help if I know what's going on. I can't help if I'm asking a 17-year-old to give me more than fine or okay or sure. I need to, you want me to get more. If you want to have an easier job, I can gladly help you. But I need to know what I'm asking for. Dr. Turk knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Sorry, laughing. All right, we're on.
Conversation.
Thank you. It's a great discussion.
Thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
For addressing the need.
That's my,
Very important.
that's my job. No.
Any other questions or comments for our presenters? Oh. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Can we? No, just presenting. They usually just present the, give me those weird changes.
Actually, at this time, I would ask for a motion to table this and actually move into
Table what?
the last presentation just for a second, because our administrators are going to be here a little bit longer. I'd like to try to get Mr. Reedy out. Also because that's our bill. So effectively, I would like to just, if we could table the presentations from the principals for a split second, move into our first public comment and into the Director of Finance motions, and then we'll go back to the presentations from the principal, if that's okay. Perfect. So at this time, or I'm just gonna make the motion actually. I move to table the last presentation from the principals and move into our first hearing of citizens. Is there a second? Or second. Thank you. Is there any opposition to that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those. And all those who abstain. Okay, ayes have it. We'll move into our first hearing of citizens. This is the time for any community member wishing to speak. You may come up and do so. I would ask that you state your name and your address and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please keep in mind the board does not typically respond to public comments, but rather takes them in for future governance and thoughts. Also, please keep in mind that this is our meetings are recorded. So your comments will also be recorded should you provide comments during hearing, and that the first hearing of the citizens is related to any item on the agenda currently. We'll have a second one at the end of the meeting for all school related items. So anyone wishing to come up and make a comment during the first hearing of citizens, please do so now.
Always good afternoon. Sylvia Sullivan, 139 Oak Meadow Drive. I appreciate the school counselor thing because, I mean, I'm just heading into this, but I just remember doing it, and I've talked to a lot of neighbors who have had seniors and just been completely lost. And I'm good friends with a counselor who is also has kids in this district and feels like it's lacking as well. So I really do think we need to find some way to change what we're doing. And maybe it's asking other districts if they have programs they use or standard emails that go out certain times. I mean, it has to be individualized, but it could also be something where you set up a program and then it's kind of automated a little bit. And then you also do a meeting a year, and then the juniors meet 4 times a year or whatever. But if you just standardize it, it makes it really easy. The first year is hard because you got to set it all up. But if you maybe reach out to some other schools and observe their processes the first few months or something, then you could probably put some of that easily into place. So, and we have resources of other parents that have kids here that do this, so maybe reach out to them. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none. We appreciate that. Again, there will be a second one at the end of the meeting. Moving into, number 5, discussion and review of potential motions for approval for voting, meeting, business/finance. This will be presented by our Director of Finance and Operations, Ms. Sheila Luber. Take it away.
Thank you. I am asking for approval of the following motions, A through O. A is civil engineering proposal by Gateway for the junior senior high school additions in the amount of $41,500. B is the geotechnical proposal by Gateway for the junior senior high school additions in the amount of $14,500. C is surveying proposal by Gateway for the junior senior high school additions in the amount of $16,682. D is payment of invoice 11781 to American Contracting Enterprises for asbestos abatement in the cafeteria in the amount of $26,077 as a capital expense. E is the installation of volleyball sleeves and lids in 10th Street Elementary Gym by Sports Imports in the amount of $9,033.50 as a capital expense. F is payout number 1 to S&T Plumbing for cafeteria work in the amount of $21,285 as a capital expense. G is payout number 2 to S&T Plumbing for cafeteria work in the amount of $6,750 as a capital expense. H, payout number 2 to Merit Electrical Group for cafeteria work in the amount of $23,625 as a capital expense. I, pay app number 1 to K&K Mechanical Services for cafeteria work in the amount of $19,863 as a capital expense. J, pay app number 2 to K&K Mechanical Services Inc. for cafeteria work in the amount of $149,994.92 as a capital expense. K, supply and install new Armstrong pump assembly by Huckestein in the amount of $7,592.47 as a capital expense. I, draw collective professional services invoice in the amount of $14,400 as a capital expense. M, pay app number 1 to Graham Construction for cafeteria work in the amount of $44,830.98 as a capital expense. N, pay app number 2 to Graham Construction for cafeteria work in the amount of $55,618.20 as a capital expense. And O, pay app number 3 to Graham Construction for cafeteria work in the amount of $57,962.16 as a capital expense. Do I have any questions or concerns?
I would just like to say, I'm looking at the updated invoice from John. I really appreciate the breakdown. It's super helpful. I think I really see, that's great to know what we're getting, what's happening, and it's nice to see it kind of gives us an overview of what the work is. So I think that's helpful in understanding. So I appreciate that.
If you like that, we can keep going forward with that.
I think with the scope of the project and what we're being asked to kind of prove to the public and the community of what we're doing and what everyone's doing, I think it's extremely helpful. But I could easily say to someone, hey, let me pull that up and I can look and see what's going on, who's doing what and when. So thank you. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, that is primarily the purpose. I was like, I just want you to hear this feedback so that you can also take this back to Dan. Just because I feel like every time we talk about it, he's always gone, and then I don't want him to like watch these back and just think that we say negative comments. So I truly appreciate this. I can't say it enough, just because, like I said, from an Outlook perspective, you can actually see here's the work that's being done. The one tidbit, miscellaneous emails, and review of GC's SOB, if it could just be like a little bit more detailed, there's 4 hours of miscellaneous emails. You certainly could. Yeah, you know what I mean? I do believe that it could happen. But it's not a comma. It's just a linear, but, and then I do have one other question, the hours total. I don't. It's fine. Okay, never mind, it got cut off. I was like, 82 was not coming up as 82 for me. That's still not 80. Right, but that's 66 and then 16, 62. Okay, that's 82. Where is the? That's only. I know, that's only 80.
Yeah.
33 plus 16? 82.
Yep.
6 plus 6 is 12.
I know, but I'm like, I don't know why it's just not, oh, I was thinking there was a 4. This is where my brain's. See?
Is this summer?
Yeah, I did do the new math. I was. I
I
was like, what are you all seeing? I'm seeing a 4. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Speaking of detailed invoices though, it's a little hard to follow on the Keystone. But the first one about the asbestos removal, that's not an invoice.
I was
This,
It does say the amount of square footage.
Yeah.
So if you divide that by the amount, that's
we're okay with that?
that I would be okay.
That's
But that's my,
that's how they quoted us.
Yeah.
It was based on the amount of square footage. I had to get the drawings from Rob Gardner.
I guess, Sheila, in terms of like the rest of these, they're all related to the cafeteria. It looks like K and K and the asbestos remediation were the only things that were kind of a change order at this point. The rest of them seem to be in line with the original budget based on what's in place.
So I have a spreadsheet
Okay.
based on the contract amount and each pay app that comes in
Mhm.
and how it's calculated out. And Rob Gardner, approves all of the pay apps based on the contracted amount. I can share that with the board. It also has like the 1 or 2 change orders that have increased or decreased.
Yeah.
So I have a nice little spreadsheet going because I think, I just want to make sure that all the pay apps are being received in a timely manner. I had one that I had received pay app 3, but I hadn't received 1 or 2, so I had to reach out and say, hey, I haven't received these. So yeah, I have it all in a massive spreadsheet with the awarded amounts.
I guess generally, how are we doing against budget?
I mean, we've only approved a change order for, I think, $3,400
Mhm.
and a change order for $781.
Yes, for K and K.
And yeah, and there was a reduction on the coiling door that you should be expecting in the next board agenda.
Okay.
That will reduce the amount. So we're knock on veneer. We're right on budget, pretty much,
With the exception of the asbestos remediation.
with this exception. And there is one more testing. I just got the invoice for today. It's less than $2,000.
Okay.
So
Nice.
the asbestos abatement threw us off track and off budget. So that's really the only major item right now.
That's the worst. That's pretty successful project. Yeah, we're under the percentage.
And we are going to get another reduction because of the abatement. Rob made the request to Graham Construction today, because Graham Construction, part of their contract was to remove the floor.
Mm.
So they didn't have to remove the floor since we did abatement, so we will be getting a credit back on flooring removal from Midges.
Does anyone else have any questions for Draw Collective before we end this? Next, and then, I will say, is it possible to get, confirmation of whether or not Gateway holds, like chapter 7, chapter 11, insurance liability?
I can answer that answer. I don't know. off the top of my head.
Okay. Sure.
The chapter 7 and chapter 11.
Yeah, just, like, your debt. Any other questions also, for Ms. Newbert? And thank you, Ms. Reedy, for coming. You're free to go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from Ms. Newbert? Awesome. Then at this time, I would, I move to take from the table and resume our presentations from our principals. Do I have a second at this time?
Or a second.
Thank you. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Signify by saying nay. And all the abstentions, ayes have it. Perfect. Our lovely principals, thank you guys for being so patient and waiting. Whoever would like to start.
Or just get it over here. My first board presentation. So Doc.
There's not an accompanying link for this, right? Okay, just confirming. Thanks.
Just an overview.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I'm just going to review the updates that we made to the handbook for the junior, senior high for this upcoming school year. So the cover change was minimal. We updated the school year and the administrators. Pages 2 and 3 are the table of contents. That whole section is highlighted due to the fact that we added and are taking out some content. And so those numbers are all going to be adjusted once everything is finalized so that it all matches up with the page numbers on the bottom. Page 5 was the school calendar update. So I pulled out last year's, put in this year's. There's some changes on pages 11, 13, and 14 that all have to do with cell phones. And in last year's handbook, our cell phone policies were lumped in under part of the technology, personal technology. It was all sort of in one. And so we broke those apart. And on page 11, cell phone was not specified, but was implied. So we separated it there. On page 13, the cell phone policy violation was added as a level 1 behavior infraction. As I said prior, it was considered a technology infraction. So that is still there, but we added cell phone. Page 14, the cell phone policy violation was added as a level 2 behavior infraction in the same way. It had been lumped in with technology, personal technology. Page 22, we added information about AI generated content specific to student work, and that was added to the section on plagiarism. On page 29, the word athletic was added before handbook for clarification purposes. On page 29, a line was added to the planners section, just indicating that 8th grade students can request a planner from their homeroom teacher if they would like one. The 7th graders all get one. Some 8th graders enjoy using them, want to continue, others want to use something else. So we do have the option for them to request a planner if they would like one. Page 30, the wording about cell phones and personal devices was cleaned up in the locker use section for junior high students. Page 31, the junior high cell phone policy was eliminated as the policy will now apply to students in grades 7 to 12 and is now going to be addressed in a designated section. So rather than having a blurb specifically for junior high, we created something that covers 7 to 12 students. Page 35, personal technology use guidelines was removed and replaced by 2 separate sections. One is the junior senior high cell phone policy, and the second is the personal technology use guidelines. This is in response to sort of what is coming down the pipeline statewide. Our decision at the junior senior high was to get ahead of that a little bit and create a little bit of firmer guidelines around cell phone usage in the school. Essentially, students can have their cell phone on their person, in their locker, in their book bag, but it cannot be on their bodies and turned on during the school day, which is different than what we've had in past years. Different for 9 to 12, different from 7 and 8. Now it's uniform 7 to 12, and it will be outlined in some communication from Mr. Hewitt and I before the school year goes out, but it is outlined in the handbook now as well. And
Pause there.
yes,
I,
Pretty big check.
yeah. That decision, one, before we vote on it, we absolutely are gonna need to see language around that. We have about a week if you're asking us to vote on it in August. So I personally would like to see language around it. I don't. And I think we also should have a discussion about the cell phone usage, but like for that piece of the cell phone policy, because at least for me, one, I think there's constituents that would have us have comments about it, but two, not even having kids in the district, but having been a kid in the district, I know that as I got older, I would feel a little more uncomfortable, especially today's day and age, also just not even having it on at least if something were to occur. And how the district also plans to respond in that instance. Like, I know what our normal policies are, but I don't know, it takes my iPhone like a good couple seconds to turn on, right? And then anything could happen in that moment. That's my,
Also, it's a big, really big change for the 9 to 12. When previously, as I understood it, it was kind of classroom by classroom. You know, that teachers were like, oh, well, so-and-so, Mr. Whoever makes us put our phones up at the front when we walk in. Mrs. So-and-so doesn't, she lets you have it, but like you have to have it face down or, you know, kind of like on silent type of thing. So I feel like we are going from something that's kind of fluid for the 9 to 12. The 7 and 8 were used to having those restrictions, which I think was somewhat appropriate for younger kids, right? So, you know, that was fine, but to go from kind of open use from 9 to 12 to now you can't use it at all when the state hasn't determined that either, like.
Right.
I'm just saying, since we're not being told that we have to do that, you know, like, which we thought we might, who knows, but we're doing it kind of preemptively.
Correct.
Whether or not that comes or not, I guess we need to, I would, as a parent, would want to understand a little bit more about it. And like, you're saying it needs to be off entirely versus like, I don't know. And then how are you policing that for every kid who walks through the door?
also cell phone usage is a board policy. So that does need to start at the board level. I will say that I'm almost positive that there's a.
And then you're probably gonna also have to deal with exceptions to that rule for kids.
And then that's,
Yeah.
that is definitely covered in there. And basically what we did was we took what the state had presented and decided to get ahead of it a little bit so that we had a year to kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work, how do we manage, you know, exemptions, how do we look at just in general managing how it operates day to day. It is coming through on both sides. And so the likelihood of there being something, granted, it needs to be ratified and that's a real thing. But likely this next year, we will be looking at having to have something, you know, in writing. And so having it in our handbook now and working through those kinks while it isn't mandated by the state helps us figure out what's going to work best and what isn't, you know, and that's kind of how we didn't actually, aside from the not having it up to the classroom teacher, there wasn't really much else in there that changed as far as how we handle infractions, how we handle exemptions, all of that stuff essentially stayed the same. The real difference was taking it out of individual classroom teachers making the decision and just saying.
That's wonderful that that it's blank, because I've heard so many things about, you know, when you're the only teacher enforcing it, like it's just a hassle for them, I'm sure. So this is great.
I wouldn't necessarily be in favor entirely either. I mean, also with the state of our world with like, I mean, there have been some emergency situations that have occurred and I'm glad that my kid could contact me. In the event of an emergency, wouldn't have to like wait for the iPhone to power up, you know, to be able to like text and say, hey, there's something going on, you know. Especially for like the older kids, 7th grader, okay, maybe different, but if you're sending a 18-year-old off into like the college world and be like, but you can't use your phone at all, like ever at school. I mean, I realize we have to have some limitations or some rules because otherwise it gets wild. And I know
Right.
I have my nephew in Minnesota, he has to put his, or had, he was a senior, had to put his phone in a cubby to be in front of the
Right,
class or whatever. So, you know, they have their system that worked for their state too. So it's not like they had. full
And there are
brain.
all kinds
There's
of
different ways to do it.
options,
I'm
right?
not against having some restrictions around it, but I think it's different for a seventh grader than an 18-year-old.
Or if works, road students.
Could you give a few more, details about the exceptions or options?
Yeah, do you want, I can,
Just a little.
if I pull it
Or
up,
summary.
I can kind of go over. Just get to the right page.
I think the idea is that the cell phone ban is. Okay, there will be a cell phone ban, if we don't know when. Could be soon, could be in the middle of the year, could be at the end of the year. It's coming through both sides. On both floors. So cell phone ban is coming. I think the idea is like putting some common sense things in so that kids can have them, but not. Not have them out talking, doing things in the hallways at, at lunch and things like that. So, it's a step
Who's in charge of policing that?
administration.
So I can, yeah, I mean, I can read, so okay, so.
And is it also inclusive of like Apple Watches and stuff like that? Like I didn't hear that kind of language. So are we saying all types of communication devices are prohibited unless, the building or a staff member has confirmed that?
So I think it's just some of it. Let me read the policy and then I'll go back to that. Okay, so it says, all students will be expected to keep their phones and similar devices turned off, not on vibrate or silent, and locked inside of their lockers or book bags throughout the day. Students may not take pictures or videos of themselves or other students during the school day. Students are not permitted to access their personal cell phone during school hours, including in the hallways, restrooms, and cafeteria. Please contact the main office if you need to contact or reach your child throughout the day. The first violation of the cell phone policy is considered a level 1 behavior. The response to this violation will be implemented by the staff member supervising the student and will follow the intervention process outlined for all level 1 infractions in the handbook pages 13 through 18. Failure to comply with these regulations will require a discipline referral and result in the following actions. So the initial contact, which would likely be by a teacher or somebody that is interacting with the student, would just be like, hey, you're not allowed to have your phone, you need to put it away. And so it's sort of at the teacher's discretion to when they actually make an office referral. So once it comes to the office and I'm managing it, or Mr. Hewitt is, depending on, whoever happens to be dealing with it, the first events would be that the cell phone's turned in for the rest of the day, right? Which is exactly what it is now. If a student has a violation of a cell phone or other personal device, if they have a violation of it and it comes to the office in the form of an official referral, that is still what was already done. That has not changed at all. And that is not, looking over the discipline from the last school year, that is not something that happens very often. Typically, if a student is told by a teacher to put something away, they just do, and it never ends up there. And then they go down, which all of the second and third referred offenses are the exact same as they were in prior years for cell phones or others, or other technology if they had anything else on them. And it does say here that the policy excludes students who possess, utilize a cell phone when such use is required to monitor or manage a medical condition as identified in the student's health plan, IEP, or 504 plan. So if a student has a medical necessity for why they would need those things, then absolutely they're going to have access to it. As far as, where do you draw the line with watches and things like that? It would follow along the same guideline. If I'm wearing my Apple Watch right now and I'm just using it as a watch, and I don't think a teacher is likely going to say, take your watch off. If it becomes an issue like it would with anything else, with plagiarism, with cheating, with something else, then they might refer that down or tell the student, hey, put that in your book bag, it's distracting you. So I think that would likely be the path that we would take unless the state said otherwise when the time came. We don't specifically talk about smart watches in our policy. And the state, from what I read, did not mention specifically smart watches at this point either. That being said, it's not finalized yet, so I don't know what their final draft would look like. But if that would end up being the case, then we would need to put into place whatever the state said we had to put into place. Our primary goal for this year was to recognize that this is likely coming our way and what can we do to kind of get ahead of it, have our students become familiar with it, and work through the kinks that are going to come up over the course of a year before it becomes something that we're forced to do in a more jarring way. And, I think when you look at some of the other options, ordering bags that kids have to lock and they're ordering magnets off the internet and making it feel like criminal, and to your point with like 17 and 18-year-olds, we need them to know when it's appropriate and when it isn't. And Mr. Hewitt and I had lots of discussions about when it's appropriate and when it isn't. But the bottom line is the state is telling us this is going to be something that we want you to do. Like we're sitting here, you're not scrolling on your phone because it's not an appropriate time to do that, right? And so even if you don't agree with the rule is it needs to be in your bag. I understand. I mean, I'm a parent myself. I have 2 little boys. I have one with significant medical issues. Knowing I can't reach him during the school day, yeah, I mean, it is terrifying. But I do trust the people that I entrust with my child, and I know that if something happens, they're going to reach out to me. They're going to take care of things. That kind of stuff is going to happen, and I know that it feels unsettling as a parent to think if something's going on, my kid might not be able to text me immediately. But that is, kind of the route we wanted to take, knowing what was coming, and knowing that it's going to be a bit painful. It's going to be bumpy. Kids are not going to like it. I wasn't here at the time, obviously, but Eric did mention when this was more of the policy before cell phones became, a little bit more of everyday use. That was how they spent a lot of their time, was policing kids who were violating cell phone policies. And so we are aware that there's going to be some growing pains and the kids are going to get caught using them when they're not supposed to be. And our goal is not to, drag kids down and punish them. It's just to do what we need to do to be compliant with what the state is bringing to us. That makes sense.
Well, this is bell to bell, so not even at lunchtime, or even the older ones are not allowed to have their cell phone. Because I'm just thinking of other scenarios where I know that like my kid has used their phone because of like scheduling things, athletic things, job things.
Right.
Or like they have to leave early because the game got changed and now they have to exit at 2:00 as opposed to 2:30. And they found out because coach texted the group, and that was how they knew, not
Right.
because they heard from an announcement over the intercom.
I think we're gonna be handcuffed on that anyhow.
Yeah.
They're
I mean, just
working out the
thinking of
details in
scenarios
terms
where-
of the exceptions currently in the law on the floor. They're working out exceptions, but there's a pretty strong indication it's gonna be a cell ban from bell to bell.
And that being said, if your child or anybody's child comes into my office and says, like, I'm having a bad day, or I'm nervous about this, or this is going on, I need to contact my mom, they're gonna contact you right from my office. You know what I mean? And that's gonna be the same for Erica. It's gonna be the same for our counselors, for the nurse, for our front office staff. We're not gonna eliminate the ability for kids to contact families, but it will look a little different and they likely won't like it. And parents probably won't either as much, because it adds an extra step in, which I understand is not desirable, but
It's a change.
it's a change.
To that, I think the 3rd sentence said, no photography, by students, but it almost blatantly or blanketly said no photography by students. But we know that they're doing yearbook and stuff, so if it can be written that it's using their personal device.
Yep.
I think that would make more sense. And then the, second piece of it is the interventions and the levels. I'm hesitant to say a case by case basis should be the way that we go about it, just because I think that I know from personal experience, right? I had teachers that favored me and or that wouldn't, write me up for doing it. I think it should just be a blatant across the board. If we're gonna do it, it should be, if you're caught using it, you're caught seen, with it on X, Y, and Z, it shouldn't be case by case. It should
So-
be,
And that is true once it gets to be formally referred, right?
but if the teacher
Right.
doesn't want to, and little Timmy's using his phone every other day, but teacher likes little Timmy, Timmy always
Right.
does his work and he's never a problem except for using his phone when he now can't. well, teacher hasn't referred it in the last 4 times, but she does the 5th time, but we're not considering the last 4.
And that
Right.
is outlined as far as the response before it comes to us. And it's a little different in the middle school, in the 7th and 8th. They have a little bit of a different system that it's like a red card system, and it is more documented as far as the interventions that are happening within the classroom, documenting calling home and talking to parents. When they get to 9th grade, it's a little less nuanced because there is an expectation that the students are taking some responsibilities for themselves, but it is definitely outlined to staff, you know, at what point they are to be referring that over. It is not just, you know, willy-nilly in your class, whatever Dr. English wants to do is fine because we like him. You know, it is more clear cut than that, but it does start in the classroom first as far as the management of it goes.
Yeah.
And that is something
That
that,
makes sense.
right, and that's something that Mr. Hughes and I talked about as far as our address to the staff about it, because this is going to be a big change for them as well. And having them understand that it is important that everybody is on the same page as far as managing it in their classroom and when the referral needs to be made so that it is consistent. You know, because I think that can happen with any type of discipline, not just cell phones, right? Where you get away with something in somebody's class and somebody else doesn't. And we want to eliminate that no matter what the infraction is. We want it to be consistent.
Is there, like, I guess, a criteria that we can see though,
Yes, it's in the handbook.
of what that looks like?
Yeah, it's
Of
in,
what, like the teacher as well, like,
yeah.
what
let me-
the teacher needs to refer it, or,
For voting,
yeah, like,
because we didn't receive it for tonight.
Is it? Yeah, I mean, I turned it in to,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
handbook will be there.
right.
Typically, I mean, they just give sort of the overview. I know this is a little bit of a.
Well, this is
hot button
kind of a big
topic. Yeah, it's a
change.
hot button topic.
this one's very
We'll
different.
provide some, I'll provide some more information for you, so you know specific.
Yeah, I mean, typically the changes are minor, so.
Yeah.
But this is
Right.
obviously a big difference from
Yeah.
how we've been doing it, so.
Yeah,
It's different.
it's a big one, yeah.
But in there, when you look under the choices and consequences guidelines, under each level, you can see, like the first level always starts with the teacher. Teacher will follow an intervention process for all level 1 infractions. And that includes an intervention with the student, like talking to them, warning them. A teacher makes a phone call home. The teacher can make their own intervention in their own classroom. And then the final step is the referral to the office. So it is outlined in there, what the teacher is going to do and at what point, and then when it gets turned into the office.
Do they have to go through all 3 like steps before they get to the referral though? Intervention in the classroom, contacting the parents.
So it depends on the type of the level of infraction, right? So the level of infraction is listed there, like
Yeah.
late to class, right? So your response to late to class, which is a level 1, is going to be different than like something that is
Level 2.
like, right, or a level 3, which is like endangering someone. So obviously you're not gonna, you're
Right.
gonna skip over all of that, but cell phone specifically begins at a level 1 in a classroom where the teacher is going to have a one-on-one conversation with the student. Then they're gonna reach out to the parent. And if that still isn't working, then they're gonna refer it to the office. So by the time they get any kind of actual discipline involved, like removing their phone for the day or whatever, they've already had this conversation multiple times. We've already spoken to the parent about it. So it shouldn't be a surprise if I call home and say, you know, Dr. English, we took his phone today because of the X, Y, and Z, right? Sorry.
He would probably love it if you took it.
And I'd be like, please take my phone.
Additional questions.
Yes.
Appreciate you coming up here and talking to us about it. Big topic, and also like you're new to this school.
Yeah.
I think you're doing great job. So I really appreciate it. In terms of the exceptions, is the medical exception the only one? Is that so far?
So far, and we're just kind of going by what the state is doing. And I think as Dr. English said, they are sort of working those things out as we speak. But right.
Currently also have exceptions under policy 237 electronic devices already written in policy, which is health and safety and emergency, IEP 504, agreements, classroom or instructional related activities and other reasons determined appropriate by the building principal. So there's some leeway already written into
Okay.
policy that sort of delineates that. This is.
It's
there
vague
could be-
purposefully.
There could be
right?
more, based on, what we hear, when the law
Right.
actually comes down.
And then individual situations with students and families,
Yeah.
which is why the language is a little bit vague.
And the reason we're trying to get in front of this, because, in the AIU, the people we work with are saying, you guys at the school level need to get out in front of this so that, the law doesn't come down. We haven't done any groundwork and we haven't, massaged procedures in such a way that's just a complete, shock to people. So
Right.
it's
So we have hopefully just a year of growing pains
Right.
ahead of us to see.
most
What
places that already have those policies that we know about, at least the other superintendents, they said that really the transition to it really wasn't,
Right.
particularly painful,
Right.
just like you said, some growing pains, but the students understand that it's coming down the pipeline
Right.
and things are gonna change, and they're resilient and tailored and adjust as they're needed. At least that's what I'm hearing from my colleagues in other places.
Does that apply to like field trips, like off campus kind of activities and things like that?
We didn't even address that really, and that isn't addressed anywhere in the handbook, so that's probably why when we were updating it, that I would think that the policy, generally speaking, would apply to school functions and events, but knowing the kids are gonna be on sporting events and things like that, I would say that might even be something that we would talk to the athletic director about too, as far as.
That seems like it would even be an exception, like if you're, leaving on a bus early because of an athletic event, or whether I'm thinking of actually a very specific, serious situation that I was glad that my daughter did have her phone, because the junior class went down to the NACAC conference down, or whatever they call it, at the convention center.
Right.
And it was like potential active shooter situation, and it was chaotic and it was traumatic, and I'm glad that I knew about it when it was
Right.
occurring, rather than
Right.
like hours later.
And in that situation, right, like, the students are gonna have their phones on them. And if there's an emergency situation like that, like, I'm not gonna call them in the next day and reprimand them
Right,
for taking their phone out
yeah,
during school hours at an event where something terrifying happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And remember, in an event, you don't have a classroom phone that you can, so
Correct.
they-
There's-
they're,
right.
they're
Yeah.
gonna need.
I guess we just should outline those kinds of situations where they're on a bus going to an event,
Right.
or whether it's athletic, academic, music, whatever, thing could be. Because you want to be able to be in contact with parents, or even for the younger kids who are on that bus and they don't drive, so they need to
They
be picked
ride.
up at a certain
Absolutely.
time. Like,
And our,
Students while they're.
yeah,
our
and then
policy-
where they're in transportation to different events.
our policy specifically, with the actual time listed, says school hours. So if they're getting on a bus in the evening to go to, or after school to go to
But
an
some
event,
days in the middle of the day, like.
they do, right, and
Period.
Right.
They leave school property.
So
if they leave
If
school
we can just
property
assign
or
it to school
Right,
building.
because like.
easy enough.
The
I
NACAC
would
thing,
think,
like,
yeah.
that is a day-long
Yeah.
school hour thing,
Right,
but they're downtown, like for.
and that could be pretty easily added to the area about the exemptions, that
Like
students.
when traveling. off
Right, when
campus.
traveling off campus or at an off-campus event, students can have their cell phones on their person and.
Yeah.
If they're gonna text you to say, Mom,
Also,
I'll be
like,
home in 15
that
minutes.
actually brings up that event, actually, you have to have your cell phone, because you
You're
can't do your
scanning
QR
things,
codes at all the
right,
booths without it.
Right, and we're certainly not trying to limit their possibilities by saying we're sending these kids out to this great
Yeah.
event and they can't connect with anybody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
just thinking of those, like,
and
I'm not
honestly,
trying to be picky, I'm just trying to think of like these, like.
but that's exactly why
situations we
it's
need to think
important that
about.
we're doing this now, right? Because a year from now, when we have to have a real concrete policy that lines up with what the state is telling us, those are things that we've had a chance to say like, oh, that's a problem, like, we need to make sure
Or
that
just to
we're
define
adjusting
it, how
that,
do
right?
we-
Absolutely, yeah.
I
Right.
would say, in spirit of the law,
Something.
is that cell phones are bad for instruction and for learning. Then, in my opinion, it's in the classroom, bell to bell kind of thing, for whatever the law is gonna turn into. Which is why we're doing it this way. I don't wanna do the bags. I don't wanna do collecting cell phones, because now I think you're taking the responsibility away. Because I like the way we've been doing it, because it does release the responsibility back to the kids and learn how to do this and things like that. But if the state's gonna take that away, I want to still make it as least restrictive as possible. You know what I mean? Yeah, like,
Least restrictive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not punitive.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, I want it to
Right.
be punitive.
we don't want it to feel yucky, Right. But
Well, ideally, we're teaching our kids to be good tech users
Yeah.
because
Right.
we're not changing anything. Like cell phones are here to stay, you know, computers are part of everything.
And even what you brought up, like the planners, for example, like we give the planners to seventh graders and eighth graders, we've been trying to teach them. Use a different way, and part of that was take out your phone, put it on your calendar.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna lose that, now it's gonna be take out your computer, put it on your calendar.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you still do, it's still a thing, but we, you know.
Yeah.
Do you all take out your computer when you're gonna add something, when you're at your doctor's office, when you're doing your next appointment?
Yeah.
You know, I think those are responsible uses, and I think that school's a good time to use those, but I think we're gonna lose that option. So I'd like it to be the least painful, miserable thing that we can do.
Yeah.
Just like, trust you, keep it away.
The least restrictive, the least.
Please restrict it, but, you know, from bell to bell, we don't wanna see it.
Well, they still have their device,
They do.
so they can be Googling something or putting on something on the calendar. It's not like they can't still do things like that. Yeah.
Right.
And just seeing how this went, I probably should have prefaced like, hey, I'm about to drop this big thing on you, but I do have like two more things that are like probably not gonna be that anything like this. So there's just two more. On page 38, we did add a section about the student use of artificial intelligence. That's in addition to specifically how it relates to plagiarism. So it's just a more general statement about using AI. It's a positive thing. It just kind of is like a be aware. This is how we can use AI to brainstorm and to work to our benefit, but just a general statement about AI. And then the last one, 46, we updated our link to the school board policies because the website, we changed to a different policy system. So that is now live there. Any other questions?
No, I think we just need to make sure that, that people are aware this is being discussed, because there will be people on both sides of this that will want to have an opinion, and I think we can probably assume they'll show up.
Yep.
So, thank you for sharing it. Just be prepared, because I think that we can't just slip it in there and be like, hey.
Right.
Because I know what's gonna come through my front door that first day.
Right. And Dr. English, we did speak about making sure that the information was sent out to families. Yes.
If we could note it on the agenda next week. I think
Like when we
that's,
get this file on the list, to review to
Right.
say like with cell phone changes or something like
It's
that.
all highlighted in the draft.
But I'm saying people in the public, they
To be
don't
able to
look
see
at
it.
the attachments,
Right.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like just like indicate it, that's all.
just giving people notice, yeah. Go ahead, Bridget.
Thanks. I just want to thank you guys for being proactive. I do think that unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your point of view, this is something that's definitely going to happen. We've talked about it all year this year in the legislative report. I also want to just offer as a resource myself. My job is working in a state that has a ban on cell phones, bell to bell. So I certainly can let you know like how that's working in Virginia and some other places as well. I'd love to give you guys some information about other ways that kids are using AI. And I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to give anyone any bad ideas.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for going first.
Thank you. Honestly, we appreciate it because your first meeting and there you go. Okay,
We're asking all the questions that will eventually come up anyway.
right.
Anything on cell phones?
They've always been no cell phones.
I
So ours is not new.
Easy.
Ours is not new that there's no cell phones. It's always been that way. Just a couple things, cleaning up some language, update our new staff information. We both got new guidance counselors that are listed in the handbook. The whole technology part about, because now we're gonna have e-school when home access. So we have to put when we get that, the step-by-step instructions for parents to access the grades and their report cards and all of those things. Looking at bullying and cyberbullying to align with the most recent changes in the district policy. And also the discipline changes around that were in the district's policy, the board policy that changed. Health services, everyone gets free breakfast and we have to change the meal pricing.
Yeah.
And that everyone at Verner gets free lunch. And then also just double check the immunization requirements and what to do if you don't have the immunizations that they suggest. And then this is our big, our big one is personal appearance, no pajamas.
Unless it's PJ Day.
Unless it's PJ Day. There, we do have designated PJ days, definitely. And making sure our shorts are an appropriate length and cover everything that's needed
Is there a precise?
to be covered.
Fingertip rule.
I like the fingertip rule, but I also know they're little kids. And sometimes that gets a little hard to get exact fingertips, but as long as they're covered, if that makes sense. It's kind of in there already. Everything has to be covered, but the sixth graders like to push it to the edge. Let's just put it that way.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What we're defining as PJs? I know that it can sound a little contrite, but the reason being, right, if people can't afford clothes and we're classifying joggers as PJs
No,
or
we're not.
sweats or something
No.
like that, can be
It's-
limiting to a child.
No, it's very obvious what pajamas are.
Okay,
Joggers are not. I have kids where my kid wore sweatpants his entire life. It's if you know what looks like a pajama. And we know who, and we,
I don't know that, I don't know, that's.
how do I want to say it? If there's a question, then we'll call home and ask. If that's an issue. I have had kids come with pajama bottoms. I knew it was laundry day. I don't know how else to describe it. It was okay for that one day. Or we have a closet full of clothes if anybody needs anything.
Well, I mean, I get that, but it's also stigmatizing to a kid, right? Like,
Right.
if you're getting called out consistently.
But we also-
Or at all for your appearance, and then you can't affect your appearance because you can't afford to appear how our rules are asking you to appear. That's stigmatizing to a kid. That's why, so I get it, but it's just something to be cognizant of.
I've been at Verner since 2019. And I haven't had anyone wear pajamas because that was the only thing they had, except that one kid last year, and he said it was laundry day.
In
That
my
was it.
experience, pajamas have been much more expensive than pants, honestly. So
The airport anymore.
And then, not excessive holes or tears. I know it's a thing, but it gets a little dicey at the elementary school as far as making sure everything's covered or getting caught on the playground equipment, to be honest with you. When it's kind of open and then it gets caught on something. You're next.
Okay. The last couple things dealt with school safety. We have to update the Dr. Turk's charge of that. School visitation, it's not really clear in the handbook, you know, the process that people go through, so we wanted to update that, and that was about it for the elementary school. Kindergartners, they can't bring their cell phones, so we're excited. No, that was about it. It was just little nuance kind of things.
I've always had the
Yeah.
cell phone stuff.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ask a question real quick.
Sure. I'll ask the same question every time.
She wants to know kindergarten numbers.
Bingo. What's the kindergarten enrollment looking like?
I have 21.
21 in Verner?
Dr. Z.
I think it's something around.
I think it's.
It's almost that, right?
It's very close to 50.
50. Thank you.
70.
Yeah.
All right, I should be the shortest. This is from Mr. Carter. There's only minimal changes to the two handbooks, the athletic student handbook. He changed any references of family ID to bound. And from what I understand, the bound is, it wasn't, you are a guinea pig. You went through it. From what I'm hearing, things are,
I'm a guinea pig for it. It was helpful to have people with me when I'm guinea pigging, because I sent it for a lot of questions, but they were addressing my questions, so that's.
right, yeah, so that's what I'm
If
hearing.
you get it moving, it's the getting moving part. It was a little wonky, as they say, but
Right.
we're working through it. I can only speak from soccer boosters. I sent it to soccer people, and we had some questions, but
You're done yet?
I have not. I found that there needed to be more instructions up front because I have my personal account made, but then when I look back at the second round of instructions, it was like, you need to create a family account first. I'm like, okay, I don't see how to do that. And so once you have a personal account, there's like nothing on the page. So I've not
Two different
found it
things.
to be that
Guess
intuitive.
we need more directions.
yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
again, I had people there with me, walking me through the steps.
Right.
You need steps.
Yeah, just sending it out, like to be like, here's the new thing. It's better than family ID. Like,
See it, you learn.
I'm pretty good with technology. Like I set up my account and I was like, now there's nothing here. And then it was like, you have a family account. I'm like, I don't see a family account.
Okay.
I haven't made it through.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth.
And I also wanted to ask actually about the change of bound with the website. Because right now we've got the old site live and the new site live.
The calendar's not up yet either.
The calendar's not yet. It seems like it's in between.
It's, the calendar's live, but it's not connected to the website yet.
And so I want to be sure that parents, especially if they're not fall athletes, you're not looking at this stuff yet, right? But like, if you are, we need to flip that switch and make it clear to everybody who's looking at what pages, because like right now, if you go on the new site, it's just pick your sport, see, potential calendar or whatever, but there's no pictures, there's no rosters, there's no information, like it's just.
Well, yeah, wouldn't be any rosters yet anyway. Is the schedule, are the schedules up?
Yes.
Okay.
But so like, my point is, we've got two sites, one that looks like it's going away and one that looks like it's not here yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we need to make a decision, to turn off one or the other one sooner than later and make sure that the new one looks like the new one. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So,
Cool.
sorry, we've been a bit of guinea pigs. So
Yes,
they're early
Thank you for that.
folks.
Yeah, I really want to get the calendar. That's my thing. We need to get the calendar.
Yeah,
Because
I
there's
just,
stuff on there.
when I went on there, I just was like, oh, maybe this isn't live because there's like nothing very visible. But then the old one was still looked like it was an operation. So that's where I was confused.
Yeah, the old calendar should be down. I don't even think we have access to it.
Okay, good.
So that's good.
But I mean, like.
We need to get more people onto the new.
Like it looks as though it's not really functioning yet. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Pages 14 and 15 of the athletic student handbook. They updated the varsity letter requirements, added bowling, and there were varsity awards only. They made those changes too. In the athletic coaches handbook, another thing, changed all the references for completing paperwork to comply. So now the coaches are on where with everyone else was, they are all online for all their paperwork through comply. So we made all those changes. And they changed the coach AD budgeting procedures, I believe after you guys met, to include a coach's wish list and coaches to complete a PO request form to help streamline the purchasing process. Other than that, everything is the same in those two handbooks, because we made some major overhauls last year.
Is bowling a club sport? Can you letter in a club sport?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, they compete, there's playoffs and.
Yeah.
It's Whitfield.
But for us, it's
Whitfield.
yeah, it is Whitfield.
No, it's
Whitfield.
Whitfield.
Oh, Whitfield.
Like
sorry.
hockey has.
Whitfield with
Yeah,
a B.
AFL.
Yeah.
Whitfield.
So, sorry, one other thing,
Whitfield.
just a
Whitfield.
reminder too, of like, oh my, for the site. How many things are attached to the old athletic site? Like meaning when you Google it, like there's other things that come up that it would be on, it's on Max Preps, it's on Huddle, it's on, like all the other places. So when we're updating or we're making that switch, even when you Google it, like the new one's not coming up yet, which is fine because it doesn't look like it's live, even though it is.
Right.
But just be mindful of like where this lives, because like if other coaches or other schools are like trying to contact Mr. Carter, or, you know what I mean, like,
Yes, I still get
you're
emails.
not getting, yeah, you're not, if you Google it or something, or you go on Huddle or whatever, you're looking at the other. You see, this
Once,
is,
once this goes down, can't you just bounce this domain to the new?
hopefully, yeah, yeah.
That way.
So like the
link
old
out
looks
there.
like it's kind of going away,
Just bounce
right?
to the new one.
But the new one looks like it's not, yeah,
Yeah.
Right. It's,
Because it
like
just
that, you
kind of
can't even
like blank. Yeah, so my point is, but you do see schedules, like I clicked on one and I was like, oh, you do see a schedule. Which is good.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, that needs to go.
you need to redirect all these URLs. Like when I Google it, it's gonna come up for other places, right? Like all the other things it's attached to. So just as a reminder.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question? Hi. Minimal presentation.
Does any board member have any questions for any of our administration, and our principals? Okay. Seeing none, we will move back into our regular agenda. We will start with item 6. A discussion and review of potential motions for approval for the voting meeting. This will be presented by our Director of Finance and Operations, Ms. Sheila Liebert, and our Superintendent, Dr. Neil Lynch. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll do the first one, Ms. Liebert. We have a few items as potential motions for approval in the upcoming voting meeting next week. First is a contract addendum for adding air compressor and cleaning and service for the remainder of the current contract with Augustine. Next, we're happy to have an agreement for your consideration between the district and the Verona Borough for use of Cribs Field, as well as our annual agreement with the Oakmont Borough for use of Creekside. We had some discussions about that last week. We have 3 other items here, which are our annual agreements with the Watson Institute for students at Wisca, at the Sharpsburg and Swickley locations for the upcoming school year, as well as our annual agreement with Wesley Family Services for the upcoming school year. Finally, hot off the press, we have an agreement with ESSMC for your consideration, which is East Suburban Sports Medical Center for athletic training services. Please note that this contract was just sent today. Due to the timeliness of services will be voted on retroactively. We need athletic training services to begin on Monday next week to start the sports season. So we're really excited about that. That just came in and we thought we might not find an athletic trainer, so we're excited about that. The agreement, of course, is pending review from our solicitor as well. We also have a red line Allegheny Transit Services Agreement, which we discussed briefly in executive session. Do you have any questions, issues, or discussions regarding any of these items?
Quick question about the athletic trainer. Is that ATC, are they like affiliated with any provider or entity?
ESSMC?
I'm sorry, not. Yeah, yes,
Eastern Suburban?
Eastern
Like
Suburban, yeah,
AGH or?
right, because like previously, since we had a UPMC trainer, if they needed to refer somebody to someone like in a
Yeah, they have a similar
Situation.
system of referrals, it's just not UPMC because it's,
are they throughout like AHN or like, or is it just agnostic, like of?
yeah, it's through the Eastern Suburban Sports Medical Center instead of UPMC or AHN, I believe.
So who would they refer to?
They hire separate, they're a standalone, they're not.
They don't have any connection with like AHN or?
No, they are not UPMC, they are not AHN, they're a standalone trainer services company.
So if there's an injury and they need to send like a referral, do they just have like providers that they would just direct you to, or
Except the student.
like how
their
does that?
family.
Yeah,
It's always up to the student and the family.
I mean, I know
If
it's-
he
it's
had
hard.
a fast track because they were with UPMC,
yeah,
if, people have UPMC coverage.
I guess it's more for like emergency situations where like if something occurs
I believe they're the trainer for Plum. I can reach out.
Okay, I'm just curious how that
To the
works.
trainer.
I believe it's delineated in. Oh,
It's helpful when it comes to like concussion clinic or where they have to be cleared to come back to play or, you know, things like that, where there's like you have to go be seen to get checked out, to be cleared to come return, you know, to the sport or something like that. Because it was always helpful to have that for maybe a parent or that
Right.
doesn't necessarily know where to go, you know, for something specific.
we can get that information to you.
I'm sure they have a way of managing it.
There's a line at the very end of the lecture to see exactly. This priority of coverage is shown.
I'll get you some information in the referral process, initial part.
Yeah, it's fine. It's more for the district to understand, like, what's that protocol, you know?
Any question? Any other questions?
And Sheila, how much were we paying for athletic services prior?
Not that. So I think it was like 40 something thousand, if I'm not wrong. It's about like 44,
Maybe.
yeah, somewhere around there. I think it started, yeah.
That's why kids don't stick around long.
While Sheila's looking that up, Creekside and Cribs is for soccer practice.
Groups, we can do football practice as well.
Who's lining fields and mowing grass there?
I was gonna say,
They are.
that is just an
We
application.
line fields, though. I know Mr. Carter has some folks that line fields, so we help line fields. But in terms of cutting and things like that, that's a responsibility on the either both boroughs.
Are we going to get a formal agreement?
The legal agreement with groups, it's being looked at by their solicitor currently, so hopefully we'll get that by the voting meeting. Right now, we have this, just the contract that we had to sign, you know, quickly because I was a pivot from last meeting. Yeah.
No, and thank you guys. Thank you, Dr. English. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Anyone else who helped out with that, because that was a quick turnaround. You took what we said, and you made it into action. I appreciate that. I'm sure all the other board members do as well. So you need to leave here, actually. You already have this email, so because we're very much on it.
Please.
Much appreciated.
Our 25-26 contract with EPMC was 34,140.
Oh, you've
So the cost is going to be less.
So, okay, love to see that. Free budget, good budget. Okay, any other questions regarding, the approval of, contracts and or resolutions or agreements?
I'd just like to thank everyone for taking into consideration some of the issues we had in regards to transportation last year. And that there's a lot of the clear language in the agreement that's very helpful in hearing parent feedback on that of when things went awry. But it's pretty clear now that someone's gonna be applied, where someone's gonna be held accountable, and if there is a plan for it, if something happens, this is what we'll do. So I'm very thankful that you know, we're learning, I like meeting a contract, there's a lot of meat in this contract, so. Thank you to the company as well for hearing that as well and taking some responsibility to put that in there, so.
Agreed. Any other things, comments, questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will move into item number 7, discussion and review of potential motions for approval for our board. Are for a voting meeting, it's board governance and regulations. There are 5 items, 6 items, sorry, listed here. A is Article 5, Section B, childbearing / child rearing, leave for employee number 1077, beginning on or around November 11, 2026, with a return date of March 23rd, 2027, per the REA/CBA agreement. B is supplemental positions under REA, athletic coaches and volunteer coaches. C is precision substitutes. D is Allegheny Transportation Services, drivers and bus aides. E is long-term substitute for Burner Elementary, replacing previously approved long-term sub. And F is an employee status change, TPE, temporary professional employee to professional employee. Are there any questions?
The coach list doesn't, the coaching list doesn't look to have it. Always kind of.
There's no women's sports on
Right, those, the ones in yellow, it's for consideration. We're still, some of them are still to be determined.
Right, but not all of the athletic teams are listed. So there's no soccer teams, there's not,
I
girls basketball,
yeah, I believe
there's not volleyball.
they already been approved. We,
But these are just new or outstanding,
Yes.
like,
Yeah,
Okay.
that might just need to be annotated differently because
okay,
it says coach list. And so when I looked at that, I expected to see
okay.
everybody.
Either that or on the agenda too, because it just says athletic coaches, volunteer coaches and
Names will be included.
like additional
at the- yeah,
coaches or something.
The actual names will be included in the motion next week as well. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns, comments? Moving right along then. Discussion or item number 9 is the discussion and review of potential motions for. Actually, I lied. We don't have anything for student life or education at this time. We will have meeting minutes from, or it appears that we will at least from our July combined study voting and study session meeting minutes. Any questions or comments there? Seeing none, we will move into our second hearing of citizens. This is for any community member to come up who wishes to speak. I would ask that you state your name and your address and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. This can be on any school-related topic. Please remember that the board does not typically respond to comments, but takes them in for future governance and consideration. And please also remember that your comments are recorded as all of the board meetings are. At this time, are there any citizens wishing to be heard? Once, one place, so the ayes. Well then, thank you. At this time, are there any board comments for the good of society? I have one. It's just an announcement that we had a executive session prior to this meeting where we discussed upcoming negotiations, other legal matters, and with the borough in regards to our park. And then we also had an educational training by our board recording secretary for our new system that's being used called Keystone Agenda. So that's also where the public can find our future agendas forward, as well as our board policies. Any other comments?
I had a quick comment. I've been at the park, our new park by the river, and for our elementary teachers, our principals, we may want to occasionally send like a rep down there. There's at least 40 or so new families there every day. A lot of faces I didn't know in terms of parents, and so that's just like a heads up. There's a lot of new families coming daily into our community. So it's quite surprising.
Love to hear it.
I just wanted to thank Dr. English for his presentation tonight. That was very helpful because I've had a few people ask me about counselors at the different schools and that need there. So those numbers really were helpful to educate me on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Alrighty, well then I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Siri,
Jafar,
so moved.
There's two of them. Our next meeting will be on Monday, August 10th at, or 2026, here in the Riverview Junior Senior High School Library at 7 p.m. Thank you so much.